Hey everybody, it's Ben with 8FD Designs in Decatur, Texas. Today's YouTube video is a remix of one of our old Weekend Welder episodes where I'm going to bend some votive candle holders and then take a quick look at how we finish them. Since we're not doing much welding today, I'm going to go ahead and roll up my sleeves to keep them out of the way while I'm handling my materials and working with some of these finishes. The vast majority of the metal we use here on Weekend Welder is mild steel. The two varieties that you'll normally see are hot rolled and cold rolled. You can distinguish between them visually because the hot rolled has this gray coloration caused by scale on the surface. The scale is caused by oxidation when the hot metal cools. Because the cold rolled is worked in a cold state, the same oxidation does not form. Because the cold rolled steel comes out of the mill nice and shiny, you'll often find that they've treated it with a heavy coat of oil to keep it from rusting in transportation. As you can see, this side is nice and clean where I've rubbed it off with my glove. This side is still dirty. You can generally get quite a bit of that grease off just by rubbing it with your glove, but to really get it all, use a rag with some paint thinner on it. The next thing we're going to talk about with our cold rolled steel is doing some bending. What happens when you bend metal is on one side the molecules are stretched apart and on the other side they're compressed. While it's fairly easy to bend a piece of metal like this, it's difficult to control it and get a nice smooth arc. In most cases when you're bending something, you're going to want a way to control that bend. What I've got here is a piece of 2-inch Schedule 40 pipe in my vise. By centering this piece on that pipe, I can bend it right around, keep the bend nice and smooth, and control it without kinking it. Now the project that we're going to make several of as our finishing example is a votive candle holder. To make that, we're going to use this same piece of pipe as our pattern, and what we've done to help ourselves out is we've drilled a hole in here to start the thing, and we've got a notch in the pipe where we can finish off and turn into the middle. I'm going to clamp this into the vise, then show you how we're going to make our candle holders. To make our candle holders, I've got quite a few 36-inch pieces of our round cut. I'm going to clean them each with a paint thinner before I bend them, because it's a lot easier to do when they're straight. To make our bend, I'm going to insert my piece of wire into the hole we've drilled through the pipe and then start to bend it right around. When I come to my notch, I'm going to bend it sharply around to center it back up. To get the bend for the stem, I've got it in the vise as high up as it will go. I'm then going to take a piece of square tube, slide it down over there, and bend it down as far as I can until I hit the vise. While I've got this little piece right here, I'm going to take my flat file and clean up the burrs that were left when I cut it off with my hacksaw. That leaves us not quite straight, so what I'm going to do next is put it in the vise in a slightly different way, and then I'm going to finish out the bend, getting it to square. Since we're hand bending these, you need to look at each one of them individually, and you may need to do a little bit of correction in the bending of them, but generally this will work just fine for what we're doing. Well, we've got 4 of our candle holders made. Let's move over here and we'll start to look at finishing on them. What we're going to do is take a couple of them and put clear finishes on them, and then we're going to take some more of them and prep them for paint. To finish our candle holders, we're going to use a lacquer spray and then just a regular spray primer. Since our metal is already clean, we really don't have to do any more prep on it, so if you like the look of this, all we have to do is put a clear spray coat on it and set it there to dry. This is a lacquer which dries very quickly and gives you a nice hard finish that can go inside or outside. When you're working with finishing products, you need to have several safety issues in mind. One is breathing fumes from them. Since we're working outside in a well-ventilated area and doing very small things at a time, we really don't need our masks, but in other situations we certainly will. In some cases, when you're working with caustic materials, you're going to need your safety goggles and a pair of rubber gloves. We really won't be using those items today because of the types of things that we're doing. Now we have another one of our candle holders that's been sitting outside in the rain for quite a while, and it's rusted. Because we want to be able to control the amount of rust that we get on it, and we don't want to get the rust all over our hands when we handle it, we're going to use the same spray sealer on there. That way we've got the rusty look, but we don't have the dirtiness in handling it. These will dry pretty quickly, then we'll lift them out and put some more coating on the bottom of them to make sure we get them all the way around. Now these we're going to put some different paint finishes on, and so we're going to use a primer on them. One problem with working with primer on a piece like this is to get inside all of the nooks and crannies, you have to spray it from several different angles, and you're going to have a tendency to get too much material on there at one time. What you want to do is put a light coat on, and then if you have to go back and spray it again, that's fine. Okay, we've got primer on the three that are going to be painted. The ones we put lacquer on are dry enough that we're going to go ahead and coat the bottoms to make sure those are covered. And then we'll just kind of lay them down on our board to dry. We'll go ahead and put a second coat of lacquer on in a little while when we come back to do the second coat of primer on these three. Our two candle holders with the lacquer finish are all the way dry, so we're going to move them out of our way. Let us spread these three out as we start to paint them. We're going to use three different paints. First a flat black, then a satin green, and finally a textured black. These three candle holders were nice and smooth before we primed them, so we really don't need to sand them any. We'll show you how to do that later when we work on the plant stand. Just like we did with the primer, we want to put a light coat and then apply it several times. That'll keep them from sagging as we go along. Although we'll use the flat black on quite a few projects, I really like this satin green, and one of our later projects will combine the two to show you a really interesting effect that you can get. Now we're moving on to a little bit of a specialty paint. In the last couple of years, several paint manufacturers have come up with what you might call non-standard finishes. This is a textured look paint that gives you the look of a hammered finish on a piece of wrought iron. There's nothing special in applying it, you simply spray it on and go. We'll go start cleaning up our plant stand. We'll come back and work on these a little bit more, and by the time we've got that one done, these will be finished.
I hope that you enjoyed this oldie but goodie video. If you want to learn more about metal finishing, our next YouTube video will go into greater detail on how we finish some of our projects. 8FD Designs operates out of 32,000 square feet of space on 3.5 acres in Decatur, Texas. If you're ever in the area and want to learn more about our events, our store, our classroom, or get a shop tour, come and visit us in Decatur, Texas.